What if I told you that playing guitar or any instrument that has a fret hand and a pick hand was an athletic pursuit? I mean, I know that we usually think about it in terms of art, right? But what if I told you it's athletic as well? I mean, think about it. We use motor skills, we use muscles, we use bones, we use techniques to produce movements, both big and small. And that's what we do in sports too. So just as an athlete would work on their approach and their technique and their mechanics in order to not only do their sport better, but to remain healthy longer, I think we need to think about our playing in those same terms. I want to thank and credit my good buddy Kenny Smith, world's best flat picker in my view, with the idea for this lesson, because it was him that pointed out to me how the pressure on my left fret hand was affecting my playing, and how being mindful and auditing what that pressure is helps my playing, well, not only my playing, but also my endurance and also long-term playing health. And I want to talk to you about all those things today. What if I told you that you're playing your guitar or your banjo or mandolin too hard? I can almost promise you that you are, and I'll prove it to you. In this lesson, we're going to talk about why this is important. I'm going to talk about how to identify if we're playing too hard and how to fix that. And then I'm going to give you some exercises to actually build your finger strength. These apply to all the instruments because I think a key to actually being able to play softer in a good way is actually being stronger. I'll make that connection for you. And if you're not a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com, you need to be. You can access this full lesson, download the tabs for the exercises. Not only that, I have hundreds more lessons for banjo, guitar, and mandolin. They're for my Gold Pick members, and you get full access there. Don't forget to check out the learning tracks where I walk you step by step in how to progress. Let's jump back there on the set and talk finger pressure. How many times have I played that lick in my life? I don't know, a few 100,000. And therein lies the problem sometimes we can find in our playing, because whenever we play things for many, many years, we go into autopilot on them, and it's just the way that we do them. And we may be doing them great, but we might be doing them better. And they're blind spots to us because we're so used to playing it. So lessons like this help us to audit and identify our playing at a foundational level and see if we need to make changes. Years ago, I was down in a guitar shop, a high-end custom guitar shop in Franklin, Tennessee. I wish I remembered the name, but they had a guitar there that I was so excited to play. It was one of Tony Rice's personal guitars. It was a Santa Cruz guitar. I think he had used it on the Tone Poems album, and I think I've since seen that guitar sold elsewhere. So it's made its rounds, apparently. But wonderful guitar. I asked to play it. It was still set up as Tony had set up. And I had heard that Tony's guitars were set up with a very low action. And whenever I played it with my playing style, it didn't sound the best. I've heard other stories like that from people who have gotten to play the antique, Tony's famous Martin. Tony had the action set up so low that if you played too hard, the guitar was not going to work for you. Now, what do I mean whenever I talk about high action, low action? Well, I can demonstrate here on this other camera angle. The action that we're talking about is the distance between the string and how far it has to travel to make contact with the fret wire to make a clear sound, okay? So we've got to press that string down, and the higher the action is, the more force, the more distance that's required for that string to move and make clean contact with the fret wire to make a note. And the lower the action, or the shorter the action, then the less distance and force that's required. And Tony's was very short, didn't require very much force at all to fret that string. So why is this important? Why is it important to think about how hard we're pressing down on our guitar, and how does the action of the guitar relate to that? Well, a few big categories here, and I want you to think through these with me. First is your speed. How can your finger pressure determine how fast you might be able to play? And we're talking about, small increments of speed here, but they still add up, especially at blazing bluegrass flat picking speeds. Well, if you think about it, the harder that you press down on a string, then the more reverse force, I don't know if that's a technical physics term, the more reverse force required to get your pressure off that string, to release that string, right? So if we're pressing harder, than what a string requires to make a good note, then we're also having to back off that extra pressure and back off that force to release that string, okay? We can think in terms of endurance. Obviously, if you're working harder than you should by pressing the strings harder than you should, then you're not going to be able to play as cleanly and as long as you would be able to. We can think long-term health and ability. If we're playing too hard, especially if we're using some wrong techniques, it can affect us long-term of different kinds of conditions that we might develop. I know that I've experienced that over time, particularly with my right arm and wrist with banjo, playing too much, playing too hard. It hurt me, and I had to lay off for quite a while. Beyond that, tone. Whenever we play too hard and press too hard, we can push the guitar string out of tune, more so than it normally would. And sometimes it just doesn't sound good. It can buzz and do all kinds of other things. So those are big categories for why this question is important. And it's important for us to audit how we're playing. Now, why do you play the guitar too hard? And I promise you that you do, okay? I'll prove that to you in the next little video segment. But why do we do that? I think a couple big reasons. One is, as you have continued to play your instrument over the years, you have developed strength. You've gotten stronger in your playing, right? And if you remember, if you take a stroll down memory lane with me, and you remember what it was like to first learn how to play an instrument, you were having to press very hard because you didn't have that strength at all. And to get clear tones, you didn't have good chord form and such. You were having to press very hard to get clear notes, okay? Well, over time, your strength has grown, but maybe your mindset has not. So you could be pressing, you probably are, pressing harder than you have to because it's just connected to back when you learned. And there was never a time where you sat and thought, I've gotten stronger, I don't have to press the guitar this hard, and I should back off a little bit. And we've already seen why that's important to do so. The other big reason why you're probably playing too hard is because most people, when they learn to play an instrument, they're learning on an instrument that is not set up well. Or a lot of times they're not. Now, nowadays, the instruments that are being made and the setups out there are just amazing compared to even when I was learning 20 or so years back. Okay, but back when I was learning, I picked up a $400 guitar in the parking lot of a bluegrass festival. It was very, very difficult to play. So over the years, I've gotten better and better instruments with better and better setups. Okay, but I haven't perhaps adjusted my playing pressure to match those things. So our history as players is probably the thing that's forcing us or causing us to play too hard. All right. A little caveat here. I don't know what kind of guitar action or instrument action that you have. Maybe you're still playing an instrument that's way too hard to play. Okay. And I would encourage you to get your instrument set up. Try to find a luthier around you. If you're looking to buy a new instrument, buy it from a reputable place, like my store, like the general store, because we don't send out any instrument that's not set up to play very well. Okay, so it's very important. And you can even contact us at the store. You can buy a little ruler to see what your setup heights are at various frets, because they're going to be different as you go down the neck, to see if it's something that needs to be adjusted. So please reach out to us for that. Okay. Enough talking. I know some of you are like, stop talking, but we had to cover all that to see why it's important, how it affects our playing, and why we're maybe playing too hard. Now, in this next video segment, we're going to do the actual audit to prove to you that you are playing too hard. The key to doing this finger audit is to try to catch yourself in the middle of playing something that you're used to playing without thinking about it. Whenever I'm jamming with Kenny Smith, I've come to notice that every 15 or 20 minutes or so when we're playing, in between songs, I'll see him go through this process of auditing his finger pressure. Okay, and so let's take some kind of movement that you're going to play naturally, and then we'll freeze and we'll try to audit what that pressure is like. So we're going to start with our index finger on the second fret of the G string. Now, if you're not playing toward the fret with your finger, if you're instead trying to play in the middle of the fret space, you need to start trying to play, and it should happen kind of naturally, toward the fret wire, okay? Just where we put our capo. Because if you play in the center, it's going to require even more finger pressure to do that. So we're going to play up near here. In fact, whenever I push down, I can almost feel the fret wire there on the end of my finger. Okay, so I want to arrive there, and we're going to freeze whenever we arrive there. So I'm just going to play up a D major scale. Maybe you can follow me. Okay, and then I want to freeze with that finger pressure, whatever I did naturally. Okay, and I want to start there, and I'm going to play that same note over and over again. Okay, with everything frozen, with the pressure on my left hand frozen, and then I'm going to slowly begin releasing that pressure with my finger until it begins to buzz and get muffled. Okay, I hear it there. All right, and I'm keeping my pick going. Now I'm going to very, very slowly begin to add the pressure back into my index finger until the note first becomes clear. Right there. Now, here's the part that's maybe a bit subjective, but I'm going to ask myself, is that as hard as what I was playing earlier whenever I landed on that note? And even though I'm teaching this lesson, I can tell that this pressure here is probably 70% less than whenever I just played up my scale. Take a moment, even pause this video to do that audit for yourself. Just keep it on the second fret for now. It's a common fret that we play. And keep it with your index finger for now and see what you find. Okay. Now I'm going to move on. I'm going to do it with another finger. Maybe my middle finger. Man, I'm barely pressing this Gallagher guitar down. I mean, it's a testament to the setup on this guitar and how well it's built. But even the much cheaper Yamaha Eastman guitars and such are set up so well generally, especially if they come from a good dealer, where you just don't have to press very hard. Try the next string. And even my pinky. The pinky, way overplay on the pinky. And the reason is because the pinky's weaker. So whenever I go to play the pinky, I overcompensate. And I play it really hard so that I make sure that it's clear. And that's why the finger strength building exercises that I'm going to give you, that's why they make sense. Because if your fingers are stronger, you're not having to overcompensate by throwing them down. Okay, so now that we get a feel for how hard it takes to actually make good sounds on our guitar, now is when we want to try to play through something that we know. Do it slowly, okay, and it's not as much about the pick hand, but do it slowly and try to play through an entire pass of something, concentrating on each and every note that you fret and trying to make it as light as possible. Now, here's the challenge. Because you're playing light with your fret hand, you're going to be tempted to play light with your pick hand because they're communicating back and forth. And this is why a lot of times we mess up when we're playing in jams or on stage whenever we're trying to play loud. Okay, because if there's a lot of noise, we're wanting to be heard. If it's not a good sound system, we're in a parking lot, whatever, we're going to want to get louder, so we're going to play harder with our right hand. Our left hand is going to, if you're right-handed, our left hand is going to respond to that, and we're going to start fretting really hard too. And when that happens, tension builds. We can't play fast. Okay, so this really does help us. So what we're going to try to do is I'm going to play nice and strong, though I'm going to play soft, or slow, strong and slow, and then I'm going to concentrate on each and every fret. So I like to, say whiskey before breakfast. I'll play it out of C position. Now I'm getting some buzzing notes in there, and I would say that that's a good thing for now. I'm playing so light that I'm actually not fretting the notes completely clearly. That's okay. My ear is going to naturally fix that problem. It's very, very easy to add some more pressure as we go. It's much, much harder to come off of the pressure because we don't know where that line is, right? So I'm tempted almost to play through something like that and even play them all so lightly that it buzzes. Okay, and then begin to slowly add more and more pressure till they get clean. I know this, I am playing with so much less effort in my left hand than what I normally would. If I'm not thinking about this, which tells me I'm going to be able to move faster and I'm going to be able to play longer. I was actually talking this morning with one of my favorite flat pickers, who's also a friend of mine, Cody Kilby. Y'all know who Cody is. And first time I ever heard Cody play live was with Skaggs. He was with Skaggs a long time. And there was a particular part in that show. They don't do it really anymore in the live show, but it might have been over John Henry or something like that, where they would each take this extended solo, like well over a minute of solo straight, and going so fast that I would think, how in the world is his left hand holding up? How is that holding out? Now, very conditioned, right? So he's built up a lot of endurance, but more than that, good technique, right? Good technique. Let's try the same thing with chords. If we take a chord, I'm going to take a D chord just so we can hear more of the fretted strings. And I'm going to release it until we get some muffled notes. Okay? And then we'll slowly come in with all three fingers. It just doesn't take much force to play this guitar. Oh man, that feels great actually. You rhythm players, you know how it can be? Especially when you're playing fast, you're trying to play loud, and that's cramps start to happen in your hand. A lot of that's because you're overplaying. Okay, so the audit's been done. Hopefully your eyes have been opened as to how much you're potentially overplaying your guitar. You've seen, along with me, why that's important to try to fix that, right? And then you've also learned with me that strength is going to be the key to being able to play at a proper pressure, because whenever we're not strong, whenever our strength is down, we overcompensate. And especially if we've come from instruments that were difficult to play and we really, really press hard. So I've got some wonderful exercises here that I'm going to teach you in the next video segment where we can grow our finger strength. It's not something you sit around and do every day. It's just something that you can add to your warm-up routine. And over the course of time, it's going to build that strength along with your normal everyday playing. Let's check that out.